Hi, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. My name is Roel, your host for the show, and I actually have a special guest today. Her name is Kelly Burroughs. How are you doing, Kelly?
I'm good. Thanks, Rael. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone that's listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining me here on this. It's just like a show or an episode where we can get to know people in the wireless industry, and I thought you'd be a great person to include because we've come across each other several times in a lot of
Yeah.
different conferences, and I think it's just great to have you on. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, why don't you start off by introducing yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Sure. So, as Rael said, my name's Kelly. I currently am the solutions director for the enterprise market at iBwave. So, for those who don't know, iBwave is one of a few solutions out in the market now to design wireless networks, whether it's Wi Fi or cellular. My role there is really I oversee kind of the strategy for the enterprise market. For us, the enterprise market means Wi Fi, private cellular, as well as public safety. So, looking at things like, how do we improve the existing solutions we have, and then looking at the needs of the market to see what else is kind of needed for our customers and that market.
Awesome, and I think your iBwave is one of those few solutions that covers a lot of ground. Meaning, there's you guys cover wireless, there's
Yeah,
cellular. You
that's
just
it.
mentioned
Yeah.
public safety. Yeah, it's quite a lot compared to what I'm used to, or a lot of other Wi-Fi people are used to. But
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to have one tool versus like all these other tools you have to combine together to put things into a report that makes sense for the end user.
Yeah, that's certainly what our goal is. I mean, not everyone needs a tool that does everything, right? But there's certainly more and more we're seeing in the enterprise space specifically of, these enterprises that are used to doing Wi-Fi but are now layering in kind of the
Hmm.
cellular piece to support certain use cases in their enterprises. And then there's, of course, the IoT layer. Um, and then there is the public safety aspect, right? Every building in the US needs to have a public safety network. So it's kind of the ability to holistically kind of see everything from one place.
Hmm.
We're seeing more and more the need for this for sure.
And how long have you been in that specific role?
So this role, I think, maybe just over 2 years, but I started out at iBwave. I mean, I think in February it'll be 10 years I've been at iBwave. So I started
Wow.
out on the marketing side, initially kind of in content creation and then the product marketing. And then I was the director of marketing. And then I moved over to the product side for the last 2 or 3 years now. So it's
Oh, wow.
been an interesting journey
Yeah, that's
through the
very different.
company. Yeah.
Yeah. So in
Yeah.
in your role as you said a solutions director, right?
Yeah.
And what does that role do in at iBwave? I'm just trying to paint a picture for
Yeah.
people who maybe want to go
It's
towards that direction.
Yeah, it's really kind of more on the product side. So I work a lot with like the product owners and the development team to define kind of what's the roadmap for each of our products that serve the enterprise space, right? As well as kind of look for ways and ideas to find untapped needs in the market to come out with new solutions. So that's really my job is kind of what's the overall strategy from a product perspective for the enterprise. Um, yeah, so more on the technology side versus technology and commercial side versus the marketing side, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. And
Yeah.
and what made you do that shift from the marketing side over to the technology side?
Good question. Honestly, my whole career has been like a winding journey in several different ways. Before this, I was in business analysis and project management, marketing. I shifted because I've always had like a passion, I would say, for kind of innovation and product. I was in marketing because I really enjoyed the product marketing. I liked like positioning, the messaging, and then it was kind of this natural extension to then move over to the product side, I would say, and start focusing more on, what are the problems in the market and our customers, and how potentially can we solve that with new products or improved products. So I would say it came from just I kind of have a passion for this type of thinking, I suppose, and for this type of job. So it's been great. I really enjoy it.
Awesome. And what kind of drove you there to go towards the technology side of things? Like not just at iBwave, but in general, just technology. What kind of drove you to this industry?
I love technology. I've always worked in technology, regardless kind of role. The thing that I love about technology is that the way it can really solve problems, right? So, whether that is kind of AI to make us more productive and from an operational perspective, right? There's a, or it's wireless to say, what problems can it solve in a factory, especially with kind of all of these new I'd say like IoT kind of automation kind of technologies, the need for wireless is more and more, and you see a lot of problems popping up with the wireless the way they are today. And so I've always been passionate about technology because it can help solve problems, whatever kind of problem that is. And I would say like I'm intensely curious. And I think anyone who kind of works in technology, and talking to several people at Wi-Fi, like there's always a curiosity kind of to dig into something and explore and see what it can do and what problem it can solve. Sorry, I dropped my earbud. Um, so I think those two things maybe are at the root of why I enjoy doing what I do.
Yeah, and I
Drop the
think
other earbud.
that Wi-Fi just gains that curiosity because it's something that you can't see, right? We always have to use some sort of
Yeah.
tool to
Yes.
at least visualize it. And at least that's where
Yeah.
that got my attention. I was curious because no one at the time when I went into Wi-Fi, no one around me knew how Wi-Fi worked, and it was always that
Yeah.
mysterious black magic kind of
Right.
technology. And even people who did routing or switching, if they had to go touch Wi-Fi, they were afraid of it because it wasn't something you could tangibly see other than the access point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's funny, I remember years ago at one of the conferences I met Dave Coleman. One of the first things he said is, "Can you guys like create some goggles where we can just kind of see all
Yeah,
the wireless and the Wi-Fi?" I'm like, I'd love to be able to do that, but to your point,
Goggles would be good.
yeah, like RF goggles. It'd be fun. So to your point, I think it does like Wi-Fi or any kind of wireless. We can't see it, but it empowers all of these things. So it is a very interesting technology to work within. And I say, kind of before I came to iBwave, I hadn't worked in wireless, and I had no idea, honestly, what it went into kind of putting these networks together. I was just kind of this person who wandered through life, always connected on my cell phone, not really thinking about what it takes to actually do that, right? Here in Montreal, we have like when you go on the metro underground, you just stay connected. But now I realize what it takes to actually do that. It's a whole new world, and it takes I guess yeah, it's quite fascinating, honestly. It's been a really interesting journey to learn all about wireless.
Yeah, and you mentioned about going down into like a subway. I always find that when I'm in a location where I believe there won't be any kind of signal, whether that's cell signal or Wi-Fi, and I take my
Yeah,
phone out because it got a message, I go, wait a minute, I didn't even know there was any kind of connectivity where I'm at.
right. You just assume that you're going down somewhere there might not be, but you see more and more. I'm like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
actually do have a signal here."
you got to appreciate someone who had took the time and the challenge to bring signal there, right? Because most people think it's just Wi-Fi. You just turn it
Yeah,
on, right, and you get there. But there is the wire and the cable, all the cabling and infrastructure you got to bring to the location,
it's a lot.
and usually that's where most of
Yeah,
the cost goes into, right? In a challenging environment, is either there's a lot of digging or you
yeah.
got to core through some concrete. Those are all the pricey aspects
for
bringing
sure.
the wireless connectivity, even
Yeah.
cellular. I mean, you mentioned subway. Like even when I go to airports and they have the monorail, and you still
Yeah.
stay connected underground, and you got to
Right.
wonder like, okay, how does the Wi-Fi signal stay there unless there's an AP in the cart? Who knows? But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And even just from like the design perspective, right? Like I had
Mhm.
no idea you had to, be very intentional kind of where you put the equipment in order to make that a very seamless kind of user experience wherever you are. So,
Yeah, and I think that
yeah.
kind of makes you decide, should Wi-Fi be that solution or is it cellular that's probably the
Ooh,
better option. But I think it kind of leads
okay.
into what kind of skill sets are required for network engineers today. What kind of skill sets do you think
Yeah.
are important in a role where wireless is important?
There's always this kind of debate, but discussion, Wi-Fi cellular, and I think more and more we're seeing that they're just kind of coming together to complement each other. It's not really one or the other. So in terms of skill sets, I mean, I think both kind of sides need to really skill up on the other technologies. And it won't just be Wi-Fi. I think there needs to be, skill up for IoT, for example, as well, because in the future, you're going to have environments where all of these technologies exist in the same space. And they're all going to impact or rely or have to work together to create, one environment that provides the wireless connectivity that's needed regardless of technology, right? So I think, if you come more from the Wi-Fi background, learning the essentials and fundamentals kind of more of the cellular RF is only going to help you, honestly, kind of keep your value as like a wireless designer or engineer. I think knowledge is probably key, and the more you have, the better you can do, and the more value you can offer. It just makes sense. As the tools come together, it would make sense the people behind them have the knowledge that just on both sides as well.
Yeah, I'm finding that after I've gone through the CWNP certifications and got more into Wi-Fi, and now as we go into cellular, I'm starting to find more that I need to be familiar with the actual devices themselves, because a lot
Makes
of it
sense.
is trying to understand how this device is supposed to work over a
Yeah.
wireless connection.
Yeah,
And
makes
a lot of
sense.
times like some of the devices just aren't built properly. Like the drivers aren't that very good, or maybe they're old drivers.
Right.
And so there's things like that where,
Okay.
um, like you try to rule out RF, you rule it out completely. And then now you just stare at this device going, maybe it's the device.
Maybe. Mm.
That's kind of the problem I seem to be running into nowadays. But I mean, hopefully like that gets improved over time, because you now you have all these different organizations or like associations. I was going to call them clubs, kind of like like all the vendors get together. They like the Wi-Fi Alliance. They all have some sort of say into
Yeah.
how these things go. And I'm curious what those conversations look like, because that also is a different aspect of what we do that drives how we implement. But I
Yeah.
think with this, in regards to the skill sets for network engineers, it's almost like we have to, even though there's a focus in Wi-Fi, we have to know so many other parts of the network, including the end
Absolutely.
device.
Yeah, makes and the other way too, right? There's kind of the RF engineers on the cellular side where it's going to be important for them to understand more about the Wi-Fi as well, for the venues they're kind of deploying the enterprise cellular into. It's important to have that understanding.
Now, as a solutions director at iBwave, I'm assuming you get a lot of requests for like features that people want to add into the product.
Yes, I mean, but I can summarize it by saying that what people really want is automation and efficiency, right? I
Mm,
would say there's a large trend between how do we do things faster and
yeah.
simpler, and how can we leverage things like AI to kind of do that, right? So for sure, we have a lot of customers, a lot of requests coming in, but if I had to boil it down into kind of what are the themes, it would be that how do we do this faster? How do
Yeah.
we do things less manually so that we can
Hmm.
kind of focus on, as the experts, not modeling the building, for example, because you don't really want to be doing that. You want to worry about the network inside that
Yeah.
building, right? So how do we automate and make things more efficient and easier and equip our users with the information they need to make kind of business decisions, honestly, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a challenging part to handle where so much of it is just unseen. You can't see the signal, but you need to
right,
some end users want something tangible and be able to say, all right, like, how do I know that there's the signal that I need there?
right.
Um,
The-
Other than just trusting someone saying, yeah, you have signal there.
They need the RF goggles.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's part of the whole future is you put on, some sort of an Oculus or something, walk around or give them the Oculus and go, here, you can see the signal.
Yeah,
That I think would be the near future. I think we're getting close to there. I've seen a couple of like tests where people, I mean, they're doing it with the phones now, right? You could walk
yeah,
with the phone and use augmented reality. I guess the next step would to be
yeah,
put on the goggles. Um,
yeah.
but in terms of like automation, what kind of things are you seeing with automation? Like, what would they want to automate um, with the Wi-Fi network or with the design aspects of it?
Yeah, it's things like, well, the building modeling for one, right? How
Like
do
doing a
we
predictive model for the building?
Yeah. So
Okay.
first you need the building and you need a pretty accurate representation of that building, right? So usually you're starting with something like an image or a CAD file. So how can we automate that so it's not taking so much time from an RF engineer? That's not their expertise is building modeling, right? So how can we kind of automate that piece? How do we automate the design, right? How can we
Hmm.
leverage kind of AI to better um, automate the actual design of the network, where these radios go, how many you need,
Hmm.
where the cabling should go, where the equipment should go. So then it kind of just becomes an exercise in kind of tweaking that design versus, the dragging and dropping of the APs everywhere or the radios everywhere yourself. How do we get them to at least a starting point automatically? So then they leverage their expertise and knowledge to do what they need to do with that to kind of make sure it's meeting the performance KPIs. But is there a way we can kind of automate that or, the decision making process, right? It said there's a lot of um, convergence happening. So a lot of enterprises have Wi Fi right now. They think maybe they have use cases for cellular, but is there a way we can kind of help them automate even, you know, if you use a cellular, it's going to look like this, and if you use Wi-Fi, it's going to look and cost like this. Is there a way we
Mm.
can kind of help with that process even up
Yeah.
front? I would say.
Yeah. Cause if
Um,
I can tell if I was to do one, let's say I do the Wi-Fi portion and then the end user said, okay, I want to know what it looks like with the cellular side. Like that is a lot of work to put all of that
do it
together
again. Yeah,
and then say, oh, now you need the cellular part. That's going to take another X amount of
yeah,
days to try to do that. So I can see why some people would want to automate it, especially when someone comes to you and says, we have a deliverable that needs to be met by, in
yeah,
2 weeks and we need something to, yesterday.
yeah, yeah. That's it. So it's just looking for those opportunities to kind of, I guess, automate and make it more efficient for our customers.
And for me, since I'm mostly a Wi-Fi person, I actually haven't even dove deep into cellular or private cellular. How does one even get started into looking at what are your thoughts there?
Well, iBwave has a lot of resources, honestly. We have a lot of free educational resources. If you go to our website under, we have a whole Wave Runners platform. There's a lot of webinars on there. There's a lot of ebooks. I think we give away a free designing private networks course, for example, that will get you up and running and give kind of high level overview of the technology. I would say that's a good starting point. There's just a lot of educational resources to start the reading. I know that, you guys really like to get into the technicals of it. So maybe check out some of the white papers on the iBwave site. It goes very deep into things like the 5G technology, deeper than I would ever want to go. But, so there's a lot of education and free education out there, I would say, to kind of get started. And then, you know, when the opportunity arises, at least you have that education and just kind of get in there and start, trying it out. Cause it's, small cells design isn't so far away from doing a Wi-Fi design. Honestly, it's not as complex as doing kind of a big DAS deployment on the cellular side. It's very similar to doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I haven't checked out those resources, so I may look at that because there are some times where, for me, like someone won't have cellular, and I know it's like, hey,
Right,
I think you should put cellular in, but then I don't have the background to
right.
sound knowledgeable in the topic.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, and I think that's the big question is like, I think private networks are certainly seeing it in some industries more than others, but I think in the coming years, there's certainly going to be a lot of growth, but it's that question of where and how can I best use it, right? It's never going to kind of replace Wi-Fi, nor should it, but there's certainly use cases where it can add a lot of value.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing that people should realize is it's not a that or this. It's very
No.
complementary, and there are very specific use cases that people want either for. And I've been in some environments where they have full Wi-Fi coverage, but they just want some additional cellular, and they kind of want to
Yeah,
expand what you would have with your carrier and just bring it internally, and even
right.
for safety reasons. I mean, there are people who
Yeah,
can't just use certain apps over Wi-Fi. They have to be done through a cellular connection.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, public safety is always the big one because
Public safety,
you
yeah.
require it in many of the buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say those are like safety is one of the big drivers for using cellular. We see it a lot in kind of the mining industry. They want to keep their workers safe. Obviously, can be a very dangerous environment to work in. So they're equipping them with kind of sensors, and those sensors need a reliable connection to kind of bring the data back. So we're seeing it a lot for worker safety and a lot for kind of automation in the factories, for example, with the robots. But certainly they keep Wi-Fi as well for where it makes sense in those same environments. So it's
Cool.
I think wireless has always been this static kind of roadmap where it's been just kind of
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, and then in 2 or 3 years you upgrade it. And now I think it's just become a lot more agile, right? You
Hmm.
figure out you have Wi-Fi. Where do I put in the cellular? Where do I put in the IoT? And you're going to be kind of
Yeah.
finding these new use cases as you go, and you've got to stay agile, I would say,
Yeah.
with
I
it.
mean, we now even have access points that have it all. Like they'll have
That's right.
Wi-Fi. They
Yeah.
have some of the really low frequencies. They'll have the
Yeah.
cellular radios all built into one. I mean, it's massive, but it's all there in a single unit.
Then you got to find where to put it. So
Yeah.
aesthetically, right? That's
Yeah.
always a
Yeah.
challenge.
And then anchor it so it doesn't kill anyone when it falls.
Yeah, a new
Awesome. Well,
challenge.
yeah, different challenges, but well, there's different solutions that people want, and then when they physically see what's required to make it work, they go, "Oh man, okay."
That's big. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us here on the show. Have people get to know you and what you do. Where can people
Yeah.
find you online and learn more?
Um, I'm mostly on LinkedIn these days, I'd say. So Kelly Burroughs, you can look me up there. I'm happy to connect. Whoever wants to reach out, happy to chat wireless anytime. So thanks for having me, Roel. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them down below in the comments, and we'll also share out the show notes. And if you're listening to this episode, there is a video component if you want to see us and connect with us. But we'll also include Kelly's link to her LinkedIn page on the show notes. But I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.